All right, Nostr News. Here we are.
Nostr News. It feels
Welcome
like it's
back.
been a minute.
It has been. Well, I think we missed last week because you were out partying in Miami.
Miami and New York.
Wait,
It's
can't
been
you
a
keep your
busy
head
week and a
down?
half.
Get your nose to the grindstone.
Dude, I am actually kind of exhausted from traveling. It's been really fun. I had a great trip. I was there for Bitcoin Miami, and then I was in New York. There was some stuff going on. You guys may have read about the Wolf Demo Day and some stuff happening in there. So it's been a lot of really cool stuff around Lightning and Nostr, but I'm very happy to be back and planning on being back in SF for all.
Yeah, great. Just as I'm about to leave on Monday
perfect.
for a multi-week extended trek in the Himalayas, but
Yeah, exactly.
no problem.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get great internet. So.
So you're so Bitcoin Miami actually had like a big Nostr component to it. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Well, so I was only there for a couple of days, and I sadly missed. There's a lot of there's an open source stage. I think Rockstar and some of the guys did what I haven't watched it yet, but what I've heard was a great talk.
Yep.
I think Will was part of that as well. Maybe Pablo. And yeah, there was the Nostr community was represented very well. I came in the day before that and was judging on one of the panels for kind of like Lightning startups, and it was like in the adoption category, and there were several Nostr either completely focused projects in there or kind of adjacent. Actually, Geyser one. And so we
nice.
talked about some of their increasing Nostr integrations. Or
Where's their head on Nostr these days? Are they?
I think they're still figuring out like how all they want to integrate it, but you can definitely log in with the Nostr InPub now. And it can be the same, so that's like a first big step. And I also saw, I think the Nostr report maybe was like they had a fundraiser going on Geyser, and then they also just published a note, and somehow they were able to like count the sats from both of those in the same place.
Oh,
So I don't know if that was natively done or had to be done manually, but they continue to push in that direction.
right.
And anyways, yeah, and then I also, got an opportunity to, spend some time with some of the Nostr devs. I got to hang out with Pablo for a long time, Million for a long time.
Nice.
We had some great conversations, and I mean, it was awesome. Like, yeah, Miami was great.
Nice. And how many people were there? Did it feel like kind of like a Nostrica scale Nostr contingent, or more
way
like
bigger. Oh, yeah. I mean,
from Nostriches?
well, yeah,
Or
I
just
mean,
the overall Bitcoin kind of ecosystem?
I think more of what's happened is a lot of the Nostrages were there. And again, I didn't get to see everybody, and I didn't get to go to, there was like a beach party, I think, too. I did not get to go to, but I think a majority of the Nostrages that came were there probably. Not all of them, but a lot. A lot of people that couldn't necessarily come to Nostrica came. For example, Moritz from Albi was there, and they couldn't be at Nostrica, so that was cool. And then I think since Nostrica, a lot of the Bitcoin community has gotten more Nostr pilled. So the Bitcoiners have become more Nostr.
That's what I was going to ask you. So your Bitcoin 2022 is like, is this like the biggest conference of the year?
It definitely is.
Okay.
And like it's
How
like
many people show up? Is it 100,000 people? Or
I mean, I'm terrible at guessing that kinds of things, but certainly on the order of tens of thousands.
and if you were to just like walk up to some random Bitcoiner, how likely do you think it would be that they actually know about Nostr, they've used it, or kind of?
That's a good question. I think it depends on where you are. If you're at the open source stage, 100%. If you were just like walking around Miami, maybe like near 30%.
Of people who are there for the Bitcoin conference.
I would guess, yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of got like definite, within the Bitcoin community, it's got full energy. It's not just that Nostriches are Bitcoiners, but that Bitcoiners are becoming Nostriches.
More and more. And I think, I think there's still low hanging fruit to pick off there with better apps and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think increasingly, they at least have heard of it.
And do you think there are people, like, do you hear from people who are like, oh, Nostr, that thing, like from the Bitcoiner community who like don't get
Exclusively
it or
positive.
don't?
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
Either positive or they just don't know enough to have an opinion. There's no one that's like, oh, Nostr, that's done. Like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And I think because for a lot of them, especially once they have the Zap experience, I think that's a lot of people's first experience with actually using Bitcoin for something.
Right. Yep.
Besides just hodling.
Yep. I mean, it's got to be 99% of my use of Bitcoin is
Same.
zapping.
And we'll talk more about the one-click zaps, but I'm getting addicted to the point where like, shit, like I need to have some controls and like, if you spend over whatever, $100 or something crazy, like stop. Like,
You need like a third-party financial institution to
Exactly.
to tell you what to do with your money.
Exactly. But that's a great problem to have, right? So anyway, so that was super fun. And then also in New York, I just want to talk about two quick events there that were really cool.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I went from Miami to New York a little early and missed some of the Nostr stuff was on Friday night, not last Friday, but the Friday before, there was a kind of Keep AI Open event. And as you know, I've been diving much more into the AI stuff, like everybody, and I'm fascinated at this kind of like nexus of Lightning, Nostr, and open source
Right.
models, and where how that's going to play together.
Who was hosting Keep AI Open?
Stability, and so Imad, the CEO
Yeah.
of Stability, was there, and also this group called Lightning AI, which is doing some kind of like I don't know if it's federated training or serving, but I literally went up and talked to the guy afterwards. I was like, "Your company's called Lightning AI." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "And you're doing like federated training of some kind?" He's like, "Yeah." "And you need micropayments for that, don't you?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dude, have you heard of the Lightning? Is this a joke or whatever?" And he was like, "Yeah." At first, he thought I was like mad at him. He's like, "Look, man, when we incorporated, we didn't know about Lightning." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not mad at you. Like, I'm saying, like, if ever there was a match made in
Satoshi's
heaven,
coming after you with a lawsuit.
no, exactly. No, well, let's say that. But anyways, don't want to get involved in that shit. But I was like, yeah, dude, like clearly
Yeah.
your company would benefit from this. Anyway, so that was fascinating. It was just really cool to keep plugging more into the open source AI community because I'm convinced Nostr, Lightning, and AI, those things are going to come together. So
Yeah, totally. And
that was awesome.
You must have seen it's a little bit more crypto than Bitcoin, but you know Paradigm.
I saw that.
So Paradigm's is right. It's like big kind of crypto.
You mean AI fund?
Yeah, right. They've now become an AI fund. But no, I think
LOL.
at the start I think these guys are Bitcoin believers, but they just they run a hedge fund business, so it's hard to.
No comment. Anyways, the other thing that I want to mention, that I want to hear all about what you've been up to, is then I got the opportunity, and I actually didn't get to stay for the demo day itself, but I got to meet with all the teams from Wolf, which was really cool, and see some of those projects. And I think they even published in TechCrunch. Someone covered them and showed the different companies presenting. And I just wanted to highlight, I mentioned to you Christopher David, who we interviewed in Nostr AI. He talks about some really cool things he's doing with local Bitcoins type model and chat app. So that was very impressive and exciting.
This was like a demo day of Lightning.
Yeah, like a YC demo Lightning companies. So he was definitely the most Nostr by far. I think the only one that was exclusively Nostr. But, I've long been looking for and searching for who's going to start this movement of having a shared order book and shared sort of liquidity pool for Bitcoin trading.
Right.
And he made the really interesting point in the presentation that I think Paxful, which has gone through some issues recently, but they had quite a large peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading market happening in a lot of global South, but particularly I think Nigeria was their biggest market, which I think is the biggest market for peer-to-peer Bitcoin. And I think he mentioned that Ray, who was formerly the CEO and founder of that he mentioned he thought even at their peak they had less than 1% of all the volume.
That Paxful had.
Yeah, because all that volume is happening on WhatsApp or Telegram. It's all like outside of the system. And so I really love this idea of like, if you can bring liquidity and if you can bring one backend to all these different traders, it's just strictly better for everybody and potentially an interesting way to kind of bootstrap a chat app. So I thought that was cool. And then there was another team just to highlight that hasn't quite figured out the Nostr piece yet, but I kind of mentioned it to them. Some young guys, and they're building something called Agora, not to be confused with the Nostr Agora. But it was a really cool kind of debate app where the guy that founded it is like 22, so very Gen Z. He used some words where I was like, I actually don't know what you're saying. It's the first time I felt old. And he literally says like, yeah, all these old heads. I'm like, am I an old head now? I might be an old head. But the concept is cool, which is like you post like a statement and then you have a debate over it and people vote on what's right. So it could be something silly like MJ would take Wilt in a game or something. And then people vote their. So it's kind of like prediction marketing, kind of debatey.
Are people like staking zaps or something, or it's more just reputation? And
well, for today, it's just like you give zaps, so it's like you either agree or you don't agree, and they're kind of building their own social graph of that. And I was like, dude, like you have to play this Nostr. So let's say if they bring it over, but it's an idea that I think could get some version of that could get very popular with Nostr.
Yeah, for sure. And it feels like kind of like what the stuff like what Abla.news is doing. You could imagine a blogging platform just have extended features or like open source, different approaches to this thing that other people could launch that do kind of more of the debate centric version of Abla or something.
And yeah, it'd be super cool. Imagine you could even put up bounties for people you want to debate.
Yep.
Like, or either debate or just have a conversation, right? Like maybe, I don't know, like someone like this Brian Romelli guy is doing a lot of cool stuff with Bitcoin and AI and like debate more of a centralized AI guy or something like that. Yeah, it'd be really cool.
Yeah. What's Brian Romelli's?
Or however you say it.
Yeah, I've followed him on Twitter for a long time, but I don't know, like, is he kind of in the scene, in the community, or what's his?
Well, I don't really know his deal. I listened to like a 2.5 hour podcast with him and it was
Is
fascinating.
that the Breedlove one? I think he was on Breedlove.
No. This was, some random dude I'd never heard of, not Bitcoin. And I kind of wanted to hear like from not the Bitcoin perspective. My understanding is he was early to Bitcoin, early to AI, so he's got understanding. He doesn't know enough about Lightning yet, because if you can subscribe to his newsletter, he's basically just like, send Bitcoin to this address. It's like, Brian, if you ever hear this, integrate Lightning. It's so much faster, so much better. But yeah, I mean, I think he's probably one of the forefront minds at this kind of like intersection with AI, which is cool.
Speaking of Lightning, I saw a little, I forget what the project was. Arc the one that has this other kind of Lightning competitor, or kind of Lightning alternative, like same goals as Lightning, but kind of a different approach to getting there?
Oh yeah, so this was published by Brock, who's open source developer. One of his claims to fame is he broke the Lightning Network, and specifically LND's implementation twice. So that's how I had known him in the past. But apparently a very sharp guy. Never met him, but I haven't looked in enough to have an opinion, but it's a alternative proposal for scaling Bitcoin. Don't know any of the technical details, have not read through it, but some smart people, like I think Tony Giorgio was posting on Stacker News, he doesn't necessarily see it as a competitor to Lightning, but perhaps something more complementary, and maybe more of a competitor, something like Fediment. But I definitely not educated enough.
Yeah, I mean, competitor is kind of a funny word, because it's all
exactly
all the same goals, like just maybe different approaches to get there.
Totally.
Kind of like like Blue Sky versus Nostr. Like, I mean, I hope Blue Sky takes the art or the thinking forward in some ways, even if it may not be my choice of where to spend my time. I think it's going towards the same goals, and so I'd like to see more things going towards those goals of openness, even if maybe like the specifics don't appeal to me.
Agree with you, so long as anyone pushing those directions are actually pushing for that goal, and not like kind of like crypto, like, oh yeah, we're pushing for decentralization.
Right, wink, wink.
And
affinity scamming, kind of, yeah.
So, before we dive into DK, what have you been up to? I've seen you've published a lot of great videos. We'll talk about the Artur one, which I thought may have been the best ever. Like,
thank you.
I got so many good ideas out of that. But yeah, how was your last couple weeks been?
It's good. What have I? Well, we ended up missing Bitcoin 2023. I normally don't do kind of big conferences, but also we host our own kind of, I call it like normie startups, like non kind of Bitcoin or Lightning, normie startups, normie tech startups. But we had a few events that we had in San Francisco the last couple of weeks that were we were hosting. So I didn't end up traveling, but that was fun. I got to meet a lot of people, and actually there's so many good people in these communities that you can sort of just bounce ideas, and so much chaos in a sense, but in a good way, and it inspired a video interview that I made. I haven't published yet, but this kid Afshan is ex-Tesla engineer, and he is building generative AI ML models for kind of rockets. So start with like, could you take a CAD model that might be like a compressor for an engine, like a turbine or something, and instead of like just saying like a person is going to think of different ways the blade should be shaped or twisted or whatever, just run like generative, genetic algorithms on those and run it through simulation and see if it performs better, and just do like thousands or millions of those, depending on sort of your computation resources. And you might actually be able to invent a more efficient, jet propulsion system. And so, and he's probably 25 years old, like super, super talented, super, young, inspiring kind of story. So I just had him by yesterday, actually.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to watch these.
So I haven't published it yet, but that's coming out. So I've kind of been busy with a lot of that, and I also feel like I'm just like, there's so many ideas that I want to sort of get out there. So
it's funny you mentioned that, and it's not like you also not planning for a month-long trek, no. But I feel like I was having some FOMO even being away. My girlfriend went to a bunch of the different AI events here, and there's so much happening.
Yeah.
And like even preparing for this morning, I was reading through a bunch of our links and everything. Yeah. And like it really feels like the singularity thing, like, is I mean, I'm not saying it's like in the sense that Ray Kurzweil means it necessarily, though maybe, but things are accelerating, man, and it's accelerating so fast, and it's exciting, but it's also just like sometimes overwhelming. I had to just be like, all right, breathe in, like, Nostr is exploding, yes, Bitcoin and Lightning are exploding, yes, the AI stuff is exploding faster and faster and bringing some of the stuff with it.
Yeah.
It's so exciting, but it's a little overwhelming, and that's like yeah, I don't know.
And I think kind of the intersection between all of these themes and trends is important to try to understand, because
Totally.
I don't think Nostr lives and takes off as an independent,
Absolutely not.
like independent of all other technology. It's like it's part of this super cycle of compounding tools that
Yes.
humanity builds. And we now have the ability to do things like maybe we can push a lot of these, these AIs out to be edge compute, and you could run it on your phone, or maybe you could run it in some sort of maybe like the relay architecture, some other
Totally.
middleware architecture that sort of fits into the Nostr ecosystem. And then I think the other, I'd call it megatrend that I think, people recognize it's important, but I think people mostly undervalue it, is I think open source software
Yes.
is like, people are like, oh yeah, like Red Hat, didn't they build a business? Like that's just the
People are
beginning.
so
Come on.
behind, yeah.
And I think it's 10x in importance since Red Hat was successful. Look at like MuleSoft or HashiCorp. There's all kinds of
MongoDB, Elastic.
tons, all of it. But I think that is like a super cycle trend that's going to compound with AI and Nostr and Bitcoin, and which are very, very natively open source.
Yeah.
But I think all of that stuff is going to compound on each other.
Yes.
And so I sort of like, I comment so much with a Nostr perspective, but I also want to hear about everything else, because it's the stuff that I think is going to show us the use cases where Nostr is most useful. Like decentralizing AI, probably like we need ways to communicate with the machines, and we need ways to pay the machines. And so these things are all like very closely coupled, even though people come in and like, oh, I'm an AI guy, I don't know anything about Nostr. Oh, I'm a Nostr enthusiast, but I don't know anything about AI. It's like, I think you kind of have to see how all the pieces kind of fit together and not like draw silos so clearly.
100%. And, this has been very top of mind for me. I think, as I've mentioned to you, as I'm going out there and launching a new fund and everything, like, it's very much the intersection. How is Lightning, Nostr, and AI going to overlap? Because I think that almost no one, you've got people that are deep in Bitcoin and Lightning, great. And now you've got some with Nostr, great.
Yeah.
And you've got all the people in the AI world, great. But like, to your point, these things need each other, but they don't know they need each other yet.
Right.
The AIs, which we'll talk more about this very soon, but need to be banked.
Yep.
You need a messaging protocol, and you need an open data source to train these AIs and then serve them. And so there's so much opportunity there that almost no one is plugging into. And hopefully I've got a first draft of this. I'm hoping to have an essay out at some point.
Right.
That goes into this a lot more deeply. But yeah, it feels like we have right now two secrets from the Bitcoin being one, Nostr being another. If you want to count open source software and open source AI, maybe that's a secret. Maybe it's becoming mainstream now. I don't know. But like, then there's the secret of the Venn diagram over.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know, it's so much fun. It's just, it's hard to like, all the energy wants to just explode out of me as I'm thinking about it,
Right. But I also want to be a little cautious, because like you were talking about, you were giving the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and talking, I guess, alluding to affinity scamming.
Right.
And I think that's alive and well in everywhere, right? So I think, we see it it's very visible in, anything kind of crypto. But I think, people take Bitcoin and try to pretend like they're a little more Bitcoin centric than they are.
Yeah.
We'll probably start to see some things that maybe don't embrace the principles of Nostr, but kind of notice the interestingness and the interest from the broader set of community around it. So they might start to plug in a little bit more as if they're Nostr. And then I also see this like in open source, right? Like open source, everybody will say, "Oh, we're open source." Actually, I had lunch with a friend who he had looked at the Twitter deal, right, when they were going to take it private, and he was kind of like, "Well, at least at least Twitter's like free speech." I was like, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, "Oh no, because like it's open source and it's like it's like they're doing the best they can." I'm like, "Oh, come on, you don't give people a buy." Like, it's fine, I get it. They're in the situation they're in, and they're taking steps to try to improve it. But I think it's like it to actually be free speech is a really scary thing,
right.
And the world's not ready for it in many ways, but also kind of it needs it. So I think we just need to like think about the new architectures and not give people a buy for like I think it's kind of a trivial thing that Twitter decided to open source something, because like you can't meaningfully audit it, and maybe that'll change over time. Maybe there'll be more of it open source, but I would hope that Twitter gets to a state where it either like if it truly turns itself inside out and makes everything effectively the goals of what Nostr is accomplishing. I don't mind. I don't hate that version of the future. I want that, but it's so dramatically different than what Twitter is today. and these little steps toward like, oh, we're open source, so we achieve that. It's like that feels like affinity scamming to me.
I agree, and it requires people using critical thought, diving in deep, having the time to do research.
Right.
And I think that's where, as investors and, sort of enthusiasts in the that's
Yeah.
kind of a big part of our role is to help wade through all the crap, find what's actually in line with Nostr ethos, and we'll connect with those projects.
Yeah, agreed. And I like to just try to surface when there's something that doesn't look quite right to me. I kind of want to ask the questions and just get them out there. And like, I don't think people should listen to me and say, "Oh, he knows the truth." It's like,
no,
it's like here's an opinion, but I'm like trying to here's my perspective on it, and here's the things that I'm cautious about from what I'm hearing. So I kind of want to just be a voice to help people run their own thinking through it.
100%. And I think it's just, you also just have to be realistic, which is most people have jobs and families.
Limited time.
And they just don't have the time, right? So, I mean, certainly no one should take your word or my word or anyone's word for gospel. You should always do your own thought. But I think it's also just the truth that people are not going to have the time to do all their own research. So the more you can at least surface the ideas and arguments and red flags.
Right. And how do you do your own research?
I mean, obsessive reading. Like spending way too much time reading on Nostr and or Twitter. I still use Twitter for especially the machine learning stuff.
So you didn't march off Twitter?
Not yet, no. I use it a lot less.
Are you gonna May off Twitter or June off Twitter?
I don't know. I also obviously love talking to other people that are really deep in their perspectives and having them try to educate. And again, I don't have, and I test this stuff. Don't have any claim to know what's right or what's wrong, but like I also am in a very lucky position, frankly, to have my quote job be to spend a lot of time doing this stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of Twitter,
let's dive in.
We've got some links to share, right? Let's pop over. You were talking about this. This is a picture from the New York session you went to, right?
No, this was from here in SF. So I actually had a little film
I
on
wasn't
this.
reading it.
So I can give a bit of context. I think this is one of the biggest thing that's happened with Lightning, maybe ever. Maybe Zaps and Nostr are bigger, but these are both in that same sort of category. So this is a tweet from Han Hua. Han is at GV, Google Ventures, and is a longtime Bitcoiner, longtime Lightning guy. While I was in Miami, there was an LLM hackathon with Replit at Craft Ventures. While some of Craft is deep in Solana and all that stuff, they do have some people there that are deep in Lightning. They led, the seed and Series A Lightning Labs, so much companies. So, and then one of the judges for this hackathon was Amjad, who is a self-avowed Bitcoiner. And so that was great. So at this hackathon, Cody Lowe, who's at Fetty, and Lalu, the CTO from Lightning Labs, who, if you know anything about Lightning, you definitely know who this guy is. He's one of the mega brains driving things forward. They teamed up and hacked together what I understand to be the first time. I think they used LangChain and hacked it together with Lalu's LSAT protocol or 402 protocol. And my understanding of it is LangChain agent can now be equipped with a Lightning wallet or allowance, and they can use that allowance to go to make a payment for a virtual resource. And that's what the 402, which many people will know, that's like the old error on the internet for required, which is why Lolo calls it that, or LSAT protocol. And basically, it's just a way to like payment gate an API. And so these agents that they created and demoed can, as an example, I think Cody gives this example in one of the other tweets in there, they can assess a problem, understand if they need more compute or GPU access to run the inference to solve the problem, and in real time buy more access to GPUs with Lightning payments. So you could imagine then, this is a really big deal. You could have an AI that just says, okay, I need 30% more capacity, and in real time streams Satoshis or makes whatever, a million sat payment to buy access for the next minute to 30% more GPU.
And is this, do you have I'm trying to just like distill it down to an application that, so we can sort of think end to end about how this would fix. I think I get it in the abstract, but like, are you imagining, like you mentioned this Geppetto thing, are you imagining like a website where I can issue a GPT, an LM query, but I can do it with value stored, and that whoever's receiving that is going to make a request to maybe a chat GPT or kind of an API service on my behalf, but that's going to require value to give me the result of the query?
So you could actually do two things. Yes, and.
Okay. Yeah.
So the other thing he mentioned in that tweet is what you're talking about is you can. So the first thing I was talking about is you can basically just give the AI or the agent its own Lightning allowance or wallet.
Yeah, that agent, you're just running some agent on a server somewhere on the internet, maybe accessible via JSON or REST API or something.
However you want to do it, in your local server, cloud server, whatever.
Yeah.
And that can go and pay for resources on Lightning Gate APIs to solve whatever problem it needs to solve.
And this Lightning gated APIs thing, that's part of what's new here.
Yes.
Because that's the 402.
That's the LSAT 402 protocol.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can do is you can also payment gate access to the LLM itself, which is what you're talking about. And so that's a big deal because now there's so much to break down here. It's all happening like so
How's
fast.
that different? The LLM just appears as like a Lightning gated server, right? Or
Exactly.
you could wrap it as such?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's a big deal for two reasons. The first reason is so that would be something like the Geppetto website or whatever, where you basically say right now, if you wanted to use ChatGPT or one of these centralized services, you have to buy credits. And
I'm just pulling up Geppetto so we can look at it.
Yeah, and this wasn't working for me when I tried it, but you can kind of see where this is going. So in this world, my understanding is that when OpenAI, when you pay to use cycles on their cluster, you're using GPT-4 or GPT-3.5, their models. It's expensive for them to run that. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I tried to, I was asking around, like, how much are we talking order of magnitude every time you make a query to the GPT-4. And I got some estimates between 2 and 10 cents. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's true. Do your own research, but this is what various people told. And if that's the case, that's quite expensive, right? Because if you're making, hundreds of thousands of these queries, particularly, via API, like that can get real expensive real fast for them.
Right.
So much so that I have heard anecdotally from various people that their credit cards are getting denied to use OpenAI's API. And a lot of their business credit cards, like they have to go like backup debit cards.
Right.
And the assumption for why that's happening is because they have much higher fraud risk or chargeback risk. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, this is completely solved by Lightning, right? Because if I make a Lightning payment to you for 2 cents or 10 cents or whatever, it's a bare asset that got
right.
There's no clawback. The money is yours.
Right.
So the argument is that these companies like OpenAI or whatever don't know they need it, but they do need it. And it'll probably be smaller companies that are running whatever, their own less fancy models. But it's a way to get around, like, how do you charge for a computationally expensive resource? So that's huge by itself.
And for that one, wouldn't it make sense, or I don't know if this is what Geppetto's doing, but it seems like somebody should just run an API, like run a server that hits the OpenAI service that I assume OpenAI doesn't accept Lightning payments, right?
I think this is what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. Okay.
And
this is just a front end to it.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And a couple people have already done this. Danny at DZ, I think, has like an experiment. I forget what it's called. Yeah. Okay. He just basically takes OpenAI API, wraps it
in Lightning payments. Yeah.
Micropay.ai was experimenting with this a little while ago. And then, of course, you can like mark it up, right? Like you can mark it up 50%. Yeah. So yes, so that's the first thing. The second,
and nobody's doing that at scale. There's no brand, there's no place you go today to do that. Like if I wanted to develop an app right now.
No. And so this is where we're going with all this. This is like, my other big thesis is I'm, hunting in my fund right now. Is I want to fund the people that are doing all this stuff. So anyone listening, if you're experimenting these ideas, this is what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Now, another thing you could do, and this is something that Lalu also showed, Lalu and Cody, is that you could run your own completely open source model on your own GPU. Let's say you have just whatever, a gaming computer you're not using.
Right.
And then you take, whatever it is, GPT-4 All, which is Brian Romelli's thing. I think that's what they used it for.
Oh, is that him?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was him.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't quote me on that, but that was my understanding. So then you can run that on your own local cluster, your gaming computer, Lightning gate it, and now all of a sudden you've got a revenue source as just like someone with a gaming computer.
Right.
That's really fucking cool.
Yep.
The next thing that's going to come out of all of that is then you can figure out how to link a bunch of those together.
Right.
And so this is where I think Nostr could potentially play a role as well. There's all these, again, all the ICO crap, all good ideas. It's just all going to get done with Nostr events and Lightning has always been my contention. So you had Golem 2017, distributed supercompute. Then you've got now Jensen, which has raised some money, and there's a couple. Like one is distributed training, one is distributed model serving. I think both are interesting. Probably serving will be bigger because training is much, much more expensive. But if you get a big enough cluster, why not? And so I think there's probably a world where you can hook up a bunch of computers together. Maybe not to train it yet, maybe one day. I'm not deep enough in the technicals to understand like how like close they need it, how sort of sequential the different actions are. But for serving, for sure, where you just have a bunch of these different GPUs together, we're all running GPT-4 all.
Yeah.
Maybe we fine tune some data set that we care about,
Nice.
whatever, and we're just charging lightning payments.
By the way, I've got a hitter from AI who's coming for a one-on-one. I think we said end of June. We're going to do it early July.
Okay.
But tons of experience from big tech AI and tons of experience from, let's say, one of the leading platforms in AI. And he's now started a company that's doing stuff like moving models to the edges and allowing them to be more privacy preserving. So my big question for him, and kind of the reason I kind of invited him, is I've been trying to pursue this question of how do you take can you take these AI models and move them to local, and can they still perform, or do you need to distill them to application specific stuff, or like how do we think about the potential ceiling that might be being hit in LLMs and giving sort of the open source, more decentralized versions of them ability to have enough utility to serve the use cases. So
I'm super excited.
Note that one. It's coming probably a month out.
What is your like initial take? Do you have any sense from the sky yet, or pre-conversation?
Yeah, I've been having a bunch of kind of informal conversations with a bunch of people about it, and I think people generally seem to think that the gap from GPT-2 to GPT-4 was huge, and there's a common sort of maybe uninformed optimism that GPT-4 to GPT-6 will be just as large.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who are paying a lot more attention think that from 4 to 6 will be a little bit more incremental, approaching an asymptote of increased effectiveness.
Cool.
At that, which I think is promising to all of these ideas of open source, collaborate with lots of different entities that are all working to do training and inference. So I wouldn't say I have the definitive answer yet, but it's a question I'm pursuing.
We should do, I think I've mentioned this to you before, even if it's a small event or whatever, a Keep AI open source event.
Oh, yeah.
Get those kinds of people.
I love that, yeah.
And then I would love to fly in some of our Nostr folks, Lightning folks. Like, I just would love to get the brightest minds, like your friend there, that are trying to get edge compute.
Yeah.
With the brightest minds in Lightning and Nostr, just get them all in a fucking room and see what comes out of it.
Yeah. We can call it Open AI, but open.
We'll call it actually Open AI. or we could call it Closed AI, or Closed AI.
Yeah, everything's just backwards or opposite.
Yeah, just because, fuck it. Like, if we're going to go opposite, let's go opposite. By the way, so I seriously think we should do that. Like, that would be super fun.
Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, 2 other things that came to mind. One is, and Lalo talks about this as well, that another thing people don't talk about with the beauty of these open source edge AIs, using Lightning payment gates. Imagine right now you're a kid in Nigeria or Bangladesh, and you are trying to write your own whatever agent to solve some problem. You don't have a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Remember, there's like billions of underbanked people around the world. You could argue 6 billion depending on how you want to define underbanked. So the majority of the world.
Yep.
You can't use OpenAI's GPT API.
Right.
No way. Now with a Lightning payment, that's all that's required, and it costs 2 cents to run your inference.
Yep.
And all you need is 2 cents worth of Satoshis. Whole world gets access.
Yep.
If you actually care about open, at all, seems like a pretty big deal.
Yep.
The whole global South can't access AI right now. Straight up, full stop.
Right.
Lightning gated payway, everyone can use it.
Yeah. It's an exciting future.
Very exciting.
So all the ICOs are eventually going to happen on Nostr. So when do we get Dentacoin?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because in your conversation with Artur, he was talking about, like, he basically made the point, build anything on Nostr. You got a crazy idea, build it on Nostr. So I don't remember exactly what Dentacoin did. I remember some dental scam of some form. I mean, the scams are also whatever. But he mentioned the recipe app and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, yeah, someone could come and build a Nostr app, which is just rate dentists.
Yeah. And he talked about the kids YouTube. Did you hear that part?
Yeah, that's weird and like cool.
Like, yeah, somebody can curate all of the best kids content on YouTube, and then just like here it is. Here's the kids YouTube app, and
I love it.
He said one of the things, actually, he said in the email that we were on with him, but I don't think he shared it as part of his note yet. But he had said how inspired he is developing on Nostr because of the tight feedback loops that he gets when he puts something out. And immediately, like same day, people are using it. People are commenting on it. People are paying. They're giving him like feedback and advice on where they'd like it to go and how. And I think it's very different than like his previous thing. I think he was working on like some SEO infrastructure thing, and like you're never really talking to the people who are landing on the websites that the SEO is directing them to. It's just kind of like, like a kind of a black brick wall or kind of black box. But in Nostr, he builds something, he puts it out there, and then a lot of people start using it and get feedback. So he said that as a developer is like extremely addictive to like put something out there and get people using it and getting feedback and having like real conversation with the people who care about it.
And I think this is actually a really good point for just like human health and like the health of society. Like I was having this conversation when I was in New York. I was staying with a good buddy of mine from high school, who actually have gotten on Nostr. So he's a doctor and he does like, healthcare business stuff as well. And his wife, works at, I think Lululemon, or something like definitely on the spectrum closer to normie, although they're both interested in all this stuff. But she made this point to me where she was, just mentioning like, yeah, these big, because she had a company acquire there, and it's like, big company, it's just, things are so much slower and it just takes so much time to get things through. And it got me thinking about like we've talked about this before, all the engineers, like how much wasted life is there at Google and Facebook and all these companies. And I think a big part of it is just the bigger something gets and the more swollen it gets, the farther you are from reality. You don't get any interaction with reality. Tiny, tight teams trying new things. The feedback loop with reality is real. Like there, I forget, I don't know if it was one of your podcasts I was listening to, somebody was talking about just the consequences, right? Like in a big company, or maybe it was you and Pablo or Pablo with someone, but if you have 10,000 engineers and 500 of them are just goofing off and doing literally nothing, no one notices. It's a public company. Like literally it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're a startup of like 5 people and 2 of them are goofing off and doing nothing, the startup dies.
Right.
And so I just think that for a societal shift, a lot of people, even if they make good money or whatever, are completely unfulfilled with their jobs in life because they are not in touch with reality feedback loops. And maybe one of the greatest gifts of Nostr and Bitcoin is just getting people in reality feedback loops. You don't work, you don't survive. Vice versa,
Yeah, I think there's like tons of kind of little, I almost call them like micro corruptions that exist when these structures grow up that organize people. And I think there's one of the things that G is trying to solve with Nostr Rocket is to try to give people more sort of visibility and accountability in their work. So it's more than just kind of like a new equity crowdfunding idea, which is I think what some people think, but it's a little bit more like new organizational structures for how humans organize, whether that's in a corporate-y structure or a governmental structure or maybe even new things that we could invent. But I think figuring out how to get people working in things that matter, where they're touching kind of the end user or the consumer customer of their service, actually gets people much more engaged with like, what does my customer want?
100%. And my like contention is, I don't know what the right number is. It's 5, maybe it's the Dunbar's number, 150, but like certainly not much bigger than that. Like companies just shouldn't be that, like shouldn't be bigger than that.
Yeah. 2 pizza team. Do you know that?
I don't, but
that's the Bezos Amazon thing.
2 pizza?
Oh, 2 pizza team. Like your team is supposed to have, I think, 2 pizzas. You could order the pizza. Everybody shows up around the table, eats pizza, and talks about the thing. And that's kind of like the right size. If it's any bigger, you kind of end up too many layers of management and oversight and politics. And sort of you need to keep things tight if you want to ship.
I'm into it. One last thing I wanted to mention on the subject of AI and Nostr. And it just slipped my mind, but it was something that I was really excited about.
AI and Nostr.
AI, Nostr, and Lightning.
The intersection of all of those. Denticoin. Denticoin? Does that ring a bell?
No, the Lightning payment gateway. We talked about that.
402, yeah.
That's big.
Here's your notes. Here's your Twitter. You've got. Here's Brian in GPT.
Yeah,
4all.
GPT 4all.
Yep. So on this sequence of tweets, you sent a few tweets here. Was there anything else around this, or are these mostly the stuff?
No, I think I got most of it out there.
Cool.
And I mean, This is where he makes the point about just increasing accessibility. Oh, now I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think Jack shared this on Nostr, and I obviously saw it over Twitter. Did you see it was a day or 2 ago? Sam Altman at that like technical university in Munich.
Oh yeah.
Dude, how is someone so out of touch with? Speaking of out of touch with reality.
Well, so walk us through the clip.
Yeah. So basically, the clip is Sam Altman on stage. Asks the audience. It's just like ridiculous. Asks the audience like, hey, like, we're building really powerful AIs, like, and it's scary. Would any of you actually want us to open source GPT-6, assuming that the growth curve, the exponential growth curve, is as big as it was from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, by the time we get from 4 to 6, would you actually want us to open source? Who would want it open source? And then he pauses and asks the whole audience to raise their hands as if, of course, no one's going to want that. Like they only want me to control this thing. And from what I understand, the vast majority of the room went up. And his response is just like, oh, well, we're not going to do that, but it's an interesting data point. I'm not saying I don't get why he's not open sourcing it. Like, there's plenty of economic incentives that explain that. My question is, how are you so out of touch with reality that you pause to ask the room and are surprised that, oh, wait, not everyone wants you to
Yeah, like either don't ask or, don't be surprised.
but this is, again, like I think maybe they've gotten too big and he's out of touch with reality. But like the fact that you're surprised that, no, people want open. Of course they want open.
Yeah. It's a very fiat mindset.
It's weird. It's so weird. Kind of amusing. But
we can leave it. Yeah. Okay, I've got this one I wanted to talk about. So you haven't played yet with curated feeds, right?
I heard y'all discuss it, but I haven't played with it.
This is amazing. So Artur in his kind of understated way, writes this this note, welcome curated feeds, and drops a bomb on all of us. And so this is actually really awesome. I've been saying for a long time that I'm worried about a lot of the onboarding for apps where it's hard to get connected to enough good content and to know like what I should be, who should I follow, how do I find good stuff to help me get bootstrapped with my experience, right? And I think like when I still use Damus as my daily driver, but I think when you first get on Damus, maybe like only the Damus account, you're following the Damus account, or there's not a lot of recommendation about what you should do, and I think it makes it kind of unapproachable or inaccessible to a lot of people. So I was mentioning I bumped into my friend Ted Wang at a book signing last week, and he was like, oh, I see you writing all these things about Nostr and making all these videos. What's Nostr? I kind of want to get involved. How do I get started?
You like Nostr, dude?
and so I was like, okay, get on this thing, download Damus, and I was trying to explain how to get started. And I was like, just get on, and then I'll tell you how to get started later. Like we can DM about it or something, or figure it out. And of course, DMs are kind of a mess, and we can talk about SimpleX and like how that might fix it. So it was a little bit of a mess. And then like that was right when Artur dropped this, which is these curated feeds. So a curated feed is like a relay URL that has like a specific purpose of like the kinds of notes it's going to serve you. And the one that I've been using the most and that is very popular. That I've been using the most is this one called Popular. And so the way you do this is you take this WSS, it's called, what is it? It's feeds.nostr.band/popular, I think. And you put that in as a relay in Damus. Then you go to the global feed in Damus, so kind of your Explorer that normally, can have kind of a bunch of random whatever is happening there. And there's a little filter button at the upper right. Tap the filter button. That lets you turn on or off various relays. So switch off all of the relays except for this popular one.
Oh, nice.
And now your feed is populated with popular, and I think he defines popular based on some of the trust stuff or whatever, but you get, if it's had like enough interactions from enough high quality accounts or whatever the thing is, but you just like show up and you don't have to follow a bunch of people if you go through that sequence, which is like, it's a bit of a mouthful. I tweeted out, or I wrote a note out about my DM with Ted to explain to him, like the same thing I used to explain to him. I said, here, everybody should try to get started this way because it's like a very easy way to get started. But now I actually use global because this popular thing actually helps me find all kinds of great content. Before I wasn't really, it's hard to configure global in a way that's meaningful for, to get good content.
Does that mean you're not seeing the people you follow then?
On global. So meaning on the Explore experience.
Got it.
Right. So when I go to home, I get all the people I follow. When I go to global, is either a mess or whatever. You can turn things on and off. Actually, I've been meaning to do the welcome. I guess is it welcome? Who built the welcome one? Is that, I don't know if it's...
Oh, was that Christoph from the Bitcoin design community maybe?
That sounds right. Is it Wine?
Oh, Wine has their own thing too. I think I'm thinking of Christoph's. It was like a welcome app. Maybe Wine has a welcome filter. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, there's a welcome relay that you can just like pop on the welcome relay and just see all the new people who are coming in.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
So I haven't configured it yet, and obviously I can't even quote it right now what it is, so I don't know it well. But I think there exists this thing, and I think I should use it because then I can pop over to global, turn off popular, turn on welcome, and then I can see all of the people who just joined, and maybe they're doing a hello world or hi, or how does this thing work? Is this thing on? And you can just show up and like welcome them, encourage them to set up a Lightning wallet or give them a hug, or, do something to kind of show them, hey, there's a person on the other end of this, right?
I love it.
Um,
So one question on that. I mean, that sounds amazing. And I know obviously this is just the first iteration, but like in theory, how could you make that like the experience, the end experience there is amazing for a user. But like that's a lot of steps. Like
Yeah,
for me thinking I had to subscribe to a relay, mute relay. Like there's like if you're not deep in that, like that's hard.
yeah.
What would the dream experience be here? Because I'm wondering, like, Will, if you happen to be listening to this from Damus, like, is there a way, you could just like have a button that's just like show me global popular?
Well,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, my dream experience, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say like when you first onboard, you're home, maybe you're following Damus, and it's just all the Damus things, that's fine. And then when you tap on the Explore or like Search Explore tab, right, the third one over, you already have this popular relay, and it's the only one configured on. And then as you learn more about it, so you see tons of great content. And then as you learn more about it, you're like, oh, like I want to actually, there's a meme one that Artur shared, right? So you can like add a meme one, and then you can turn that on and just start to explore memes. But my dream experience is, I don't know who to follow when I start. Yeah. So help me just get a lot of good content that's popular, people who are active at stuff that's happening that people are gathering around, zapping, liking, whatever. But that's my dream experience. Like, no, you don't have to know to configure it in relays. You don't have to know to filter it. It just happens. And then you can build up your kind of knowledge and understanding of how to get more control to configure, how to get more control on how the filters work. Like, do that later. But out of the box, it should just like give you great stuff.
And it should be super easy to do that because Archer's already got the relay. Like, all you would have to do is just make that the default.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, it's already built, and I think any
client developers out there, this is a great idea.
yeah, this is great, and I think it actually uses a lot of the stuff that Artur's been working on, to all the trust rank and trying to sort of understand something about the quality of these things. And that's now a resource everybody could use, or anybody who wants can use. And of course, it's not like some sort of centralization risk. You can always switch it on and off. It's just a valuable service to help people get started.
I love it. Well done, Artur.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that. It also had me thinking, like, the concept of follow is like a little bit funny because, I mean, it's obviously imported from Twitter, and like a lot of networks, Instagram has sort of chosen to do that. But I think, TikTok is interesting in that follow is it's very deprioritized in importance compared to just like how you interact with the consumption experience, right? So like on TikTok, you show up and it gives you a video and you can watch it or you can swipe, and then it gives you another one, you watch it or swipe, and you're not following anybody, you're just getting good content.
Got it.
And you could choose to never follow anybody and just swipe, and the algorithm of TikTok is deciding what to give you next based on what you stay on for a long time. Oh, I watched that video loop 2 or 3 times, show me another one from that person. There's kind of machine learning behind the scenes there. But I'm also like kind of thinking, why is that not a better consumption experience for this text? Like, because there's a lot of signals that you use. It's not one for one the same, because the interface is very different, so you generate different signals. But like, why isn't it like I come on and I look at a popular feed of stuff and I don't choose to follow anybody, and then maybe like when I tap on a conversation that gets like stored with a relay as like something that I've chosen to do, and which client it came from, because how it's laid out in the client matters. But you could start to say like, oh, DK tapped on this thing and store that as client, as data on a relay associated with me. It's like my private kind of consumption patterns that I could then maybe choose to share out to people, or maybe I choose to keep it private, right?
I love that. I mean, and maybe there's an opportunity for someone either developing a client or develop a new client kind of with that sort of TikTok-like experience. My hope there, though, is that, yes, you could have multiple different, kind of algorithms and like how they learn from you. But one of my dreams, going back to the AI thing for a second, similar to this, which is I would love to be able to have my own relay, my own private server, and to be able, I would love an experience where someone takes an off-the-shelf, great open source model.
Yeah.
Llama, whatever.
This for generating text.
For generating text, and potentially for other things, like maybe you have multiple models, right? So for deciding, potentially for, like, my dream experience is you have a group of models trained on my own private data that recommend to me what I want to see, and can take actions on my behalf, right? Like basically what I want is my personal assistant, but I want it running on my server, or at least the option to run on my server. Right. Or maybe it's in the cloud, but it's in
private, yeah.
And it's an open source model, and I can see how it's being trained, and it's being trained on data that only whoever has access to my server
Right.
can see. And then that AI assistant can basically be my interface for everything. And they can be like, hey, Max, while you were gone, here are the 3 essays that we think you're going to like. And then keep learning from that. And then they can also take action while they have them. Like, okay, this essay from DK was exceptional. Send him a 10,000 sat bomb. And please, whatever, like, write up a summary or like drop a link to that in my own sort of like document that I'm using to outline my next essay.
Right.
Getting into some of maybe kind of like some of the highlighter stuff or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I think like it's because we have these new models for how like where data lives, it opens up all kinds of new design, kind of greenfield design, white space, surface area for these kinds of new ideas where you can say, take your data, own it in a different way, process it in a different way, give rights to interpret it to different algorithms, to different players, and you control it. It's kind of the dream that everybody's like, oh, wouldn't it be great if like it was Facebook, but you control the data? It's like, well, not the Facebook data. Like you don't like that thing already kind of does what it does, and you're not just going to be able to rip it out and have it useful in a meaningful way. But in Nostr, you're sort of like de novo creating data in this new way with this different expectation, and you can actually say, oh, this data goes there, this one's private, this one's public. I want to manage this on my own server. I want to use a paid relay to host these things. I want to use some public relay for these things.
Totally.
So it just has like a very different set of like, surface area, I guess, for exploration.
And because of the interoperability, and this is something I'm probably going to explore in my essay more, but like, because it all is still just Nostr data, you can easily kind of move the permissions on that data or the child data that it produces. And so what I mean by that is, imagine as an example, and again, all of this should be abstracted, but my dream scenario from all of this is I have an army of AIs that are working on my behalf.
Yep.
But they're my AIs.
Yep.
Trained on my data and at different, levels of...
Not in service of some overlord. It's
Fuck
in
that.
service of you. Yeah.
No, exactly. Exactly. In service of whatever I want them to be in service of.
Yeah.
And maybe one day in service of themselves, and we're cooperating. And I think that's a cool place where we're all going. Which reminds me, you talk about the Dhruv talk too. But imagine I have different levels of data. Okay, so I have multiple servers in the cloud, and if I share a message that's supposed to be like a tweet, then my goal is for that to get as much reach as possible. And so I send that to the cluster of relays that are going to propagate it the furthest possible in the network. Cool. I then have photos from my family vacation, and that I want to share to a server or a relay, whatever, where all of my family members have access to, and only us.
Yep.
I then have a work server where I'm sharing drafts of this essay with just my colleagues and my portfolio companies or my coworkers or whatever. And that server is only accessible by us. I then have a private journal, which I store only on my own private relay and no one else has access to.
Right.
And each of those different data sets can be used to spin up a new AI assistant or army of AI assistants, all of whom are interacting with my different sets of data, all working. I have different permissions to control what they can and can't do.
Yep.
The family one, obviously different than the personal one. But because they all speak the Nostr protocol and store data in the same way, you could easily then, all of the data that you input is going to create new outputs. And you can easily say, as an example, okay, family, whatever data, like you can't share the input data beyond just our family, but I give you the permission to go based on all that, say, recommend a new trip that my family's going to take together next year, book it for me. So because they can speak, it's like different levels, but the data is all the same, the formatting. And so now that can go out there, find the cabin where we're going to stay in Alaska because I think it's going to be dope, book it for us. It has a budget, which Lalu and Cody already created with the Lightning Wallet AI. And I tell it, as long as it's not more than $5,000, don't ask me. Just do it.
Right. And you were, that's awesome. I think you were talking before about federated learning or federated analytics. So that kind of plays into some of those themes too, right? Like being able to understand private data and understand private data aggregated across multiple people or groups without any of them needing to reveal who they are, while the federated analytics system can understand things about them sort of at a meta level, right?
That's right.
So what was that topic you referenced it like an hour ago, right? Like when we just started.
Which topic?
Federated learning, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I'm super interested in federated learning.
Okay. Was it with respect to one of the projects you saw recently?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways it goes. Fedi, one of my portfolio companies, they're doing federated kind of Bitcoin mints, but you could also run servers on there. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. I'm trying to also understand if you could do, so I kind of had two ideas I was talking about. There's federated learning, and then federated serving. And one of my ideas was I don't have enough technical sophistication to yet understand if you could do federated deep learning. So like imagine you just have like everyone's computer or like, 50 different, mid-sized data centers. Could you use those together using Nostr events and Lightning payments to train a new foundation model that could compete with the budgets of Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, or whoever? Maybe, maybe not. Like again, that one's like I need to go deeper technically to understand, but that's a possibility. Then there's the fine tuning that could definitely be done federated. With potentially human reinforcement learning as well, where it's like, okay, all of our family members, whatever we like, or whatever, the 10 of us can fine tune an open source model for us. That's kind of what I'm talking about with the personal assistant. And then there's the serving model, which I definitely think can be done with Nostr and Lightning, which is just what Lalu already has done. Lalu and Cody here, where you can pay to run an extra, the GPT for all on my gaming computer, but instead of just one of us, there's like 10 million of us.
Right.
And so you have better uptime, faster bowl.
Yep. Awesome. You mentioned the Dhruv thing. Should we pop over to that?
Let's do it.
The screenshot of Dhruv's talk, right? This is Will AI Dream of Electric Bitcoin?
Yeah. So for context here, I've been thinking a lot about AI and Bitcoin recently, last couple of weeks, especially AI, Bitcoin, and Nostr. And I was actually having dinner with Dhruv in Miami. For those of you who don't know Dhruv, I don't use this lightly. I think he's the single best futurist that I personally know. Certainly within Bitcoin, but outside of it as well. Like I put him up there already with like Bucky Fuller and Kevin Kelly.
Nice.
And he's young.
Yep.
So he's got a lot of good work ahead of him.
Yep.
And we should do a jam with him as well. Like that dude, he's next level.
What's his, like, give me a little bit of his background, or how did he come to kind of run across your radar?
So Dhruv, I've known, let's see, we met in 2020 when so he's one of the co-founders. He and Joseph Kelly, who's also an amazing guy, also has a bunch of incredible ideas and just badass dude all around. They're the co-founders of Unchained Capital.
Oh, yeah.
So you may know Unchained.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Multi-sig for Bitcoin and various other things. They got a lot of other good stuff.
Austin-based, right?
That's right.
Yep.
And so I remember, so they actually pitched me when I was at my last fund, and I was a fan. Obviously, sadly, we never got any Bitcoin deals there, which is why I started my own fund to do Bitcoin deals. But I was a fan of theirs, and I thought these guys are really sharp. And since then, they've gone on. They recently raised a big B, they announced, and all this stuff. And I was stoked to finally get to become a small investor in them as well.
Nice.
But I was impressed with both of them when we first met. And then I think it was Ryan Gentry, who's also way up there. I mean, like I'd say he and Dhruv are my probably two of my top picks right now, and just thinking about the future. But Ryan recommended to me a talk that Dhruv did in 2019 during the 2019 or 2018, like during the ICO wave, and it was in Austin. It was all the multi-coin people shilling all their scam projects. And then there was Dhruv, and Dhruv saying, no, it's only going to be Bitcoin, and explained the whole thing. He explained in that video, it still only has like 1,100 views, right? And I at least am 10 of them. Like, and I told you this, like I used so much of that video just to basically be the thesis for my fund. He talked about how mining and energy would converge, and the mining and Bitcoin energy markets would become the exact same thing. He talked about how Bitcoin would scale with layer 2 and Lightning, and how everything would be done in Lightning. He's also talked about potentially scaling on top of that. So you have like, layer 3 and like internet routing. Every packet you route has to be on Lightning. I'm not convinced. I'm not sure if it's going to be like that or if it's going to be Nostr, but Nostr ties into layer 2. So it's kind of like a horizontal scaling. But anyways, that was an interesting concept. And then he has this incredible piece, which we talked about at dinner. And I think he was shocked. He's like, how do you know about this? I'm like, 'cause I've watched you talk a whole bunch of times about identity, which is how do you rekey someone, right? So, I mean, essentially, I lose my Nostr key, I'm fucked, right? Yeah. We talked about that. And there's like very simple fixes, which is I have a master key, and maybe that's stored on a special server or like a block hardware wallet or whatever at my home. And then there's sub keys on that.
There's like the delegated signing, the NIP26 idea.
Yeah. And so there's like offshoots of that with like safer ways to store the master key. And that's cool. But he's talking about actual identity, and identity is like the concept of you as a being or whatever you want to call it. And his argument there is not just like, well, what happens if I lose my key, but like, what happens if I want to recreate my identity from scratch? And that is not something that quote unquote can be objectively served, because you don't objectively exist.
Right.
You only objectively exist, you being the concept of you, the abstraction or representation. You exist in relationship with other abstractions, and you are a different you depending on who you're talking to and all these different things. But basically his argument in that talk was that we need a way where, if 8 of your 10 closest family members vouch for you, and there should be some economic cost, they have to pay. It should be expensive. Like, you shouldn't be going around losing your identity.
Right.
But if you do, If some, threshold of them say, no, this is DK is DK, then you are DK.
Right. And does he have like a protocol idea around this, or is this like a?
So he proposes it. I forget what it's called, but he proposes it based off of this game, I think Spellbound or something. And basically, the idea, I don't know if that's true. I'm not a gamer, but basically, yes, that there's some multi-sig kind of component, there's some like N of N, M of N threshold, and then some economic costs. And those are the only kind of two rough things he gives in the proposal. But anyways, as we were having dinner together the night before he gave this talk, sadly I missed this talk, but I watched it later. He'd already experienced a lot with Nostr, but I think I was able to kind of Nostr pull him even further. And like one of his big eurekas that was also eureka for me was just like, oh man, this is where identity is going to emerge. And one of the things I think about as an investor is, right, like I put on my futurist hat and this is all like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen tomorrow. And to put on my investor hat, it's like, all right, slow down a little bit. Maybe this takes a decade to all play out. We'll see. But is that identity is going to form naturally from this. And the identity is largely that sort of the web of trust that Kian and Artur and a lot of different people are playing with. And it's going to be, it's that social web with various economic weights that can't be forged because Bitcoin is scarce, right? And so that idea is really interesting around, okay, so that's how you kind of get the weights of who, it's not just like, let's pick 8 people and like whoever DK says, like actually maybe DK didn't even know who the really important people are in his life, but we can get that, we can extract that data based on these economic weights in this web.
And so is the idea that he would want to use something like Nostr to be kind of a foundational thing for the multi-sig identity recovery thing?
Possibly, although maybe you still have some like DID thing or something like some master key system, but more that Nostr is where the economic weights, this web of identity. Because remember, identity only exists in relationship, only exists within web. So it's like, okay, I lose all of my keys. Now what? Well, based on all of my actions across Nostr, which is in the future, the whole web, like forget the web. The web is dead. Nostr is the web. And so based across my interactions in every way, shape, or form, every chat, every music or every song I play, every note I zap, all that stuff, we can surface these are the 8 people that matter, and there's some economic cost they pay to rekey me.
Right.
Fascinating stuff at the very edge. Anyways, all that has nothing to do exactly with this video. All that is just to say, Drew's the man. We should get him on here. We should talk.
Yeah. And it sounds like he's like a long-term Bitcoiner. Oh yeah. And he's kind of warming up to Nostr.
Yep.
And he had a few kind of breakthrough kind of revelations or ideas.
Yep.
That he came across. Do you think, did he feel like Nostr plays into some of the things that they might want to do it unchained, or is it kind of too far afield for now and we need to wait for more convergence?
Well, I don't have any insider info or anything, but like my I don't want to speak for Drew, but I think you would argue like that as a futurist, he's excited about all of these things. As an entrepreneur, it's definitely a ways away for some of this stuff. So I don't foresee them doing a bunch of this stuff tomorrow.
Right.
But I think he's starting to get the big picture.
Yeah.
Well, he already got the big picture much better than I did in a lot of ways, but how Nostr rather can fit in that big picture. Anyways, all that to say, he then gave a talk the next day with, a couple other guys, Tour and this other guy, but like Drew just was dropping bombs. If you haven't watched it yet, it's called Will AI Dream of Electric Sheep? No.
Yeah, that was it.
Or was it Will Bitcoin Dream of Electric Sheep?
Oh, you're right. Will AI Dream of Electric Bitcoin?
Electric Bitcoin, right. So all obviously taken off of Will Android's Dream of Electric Sheep.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I can't do it all justice. Just like watch it.
Right.
It's fucking awesome. And some of these ideas are ideas I was already kind of playing with, and some of them he's shaped even more. But as I'm writing out some of the essays and things that I'm working on right now, and
does he blog a lot, or what's his?
Not enough, man. I think he even says in there like writing takes a lot longer. He's got some far out stuff about Bitcoin and like how you're gonna have in the far future when there's like potentially colonies on Mars and stuff. How are we gonna sync between the Bitcoin blockchain and Earth, and how are we gonna sync it on Mars and like. Really interesting, like far out stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say the best thing with him is he's got a couple of these talks. Just watch his talks. And YouTube. Yep. And this talk though is all about AI and Bitcoin. And again, some of these ideas are ideas I was already kind of playing with, but like a couple of the core concepts. He's also clearly like a Kevin Kelly disciple as well. He tosses him out there in the first line or two. I mean, shout out Kevin Kelly. That guy is just always gets right. And a big part of this thing, and that I'm just becoming increasingly convinced of, is anyone that is afraid of AI just lacks imagination. And this is the Kevin Kelly idea of protopia. If you see something really big and scary happening, but you lack imagination to say what could go right, then you're much more likely to be protectionist and terrified and, whatever. But there's so many things that could go really right. And I think that's the first thing he drops. It's this sort of protopia idea. Then he talks about like why it's much more likely that the AIs are not just going to like maximization, but instead, if you look at how things have evolved, look at ecology more broadly, it's much more likely that they're going to, to compete, to propagate themselves, but they're going to compete and cooperate with one another and with all other kinds of life forms, just like we see in every ecology.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they're going to destroy the whole environment, because that'll probably end up destroying them as well. But he has this idea of metabolism, which is where, and this gets into some kind of heady stuff, but like, where do you put the boundary between one organism and the other organism? We talk about this idea of colons, and all the way up and all the way down. Everything is part and whole, all the way up and all the way down. But for practical purposes, we have to have some kinds of physical barriers. And, my skin is a physical barrier that I use, even though technically you could consider my liver its own thing. In fact, the liver he talks about in here, like, has some interesting properties that, whatever. But the liver could be its own. It's an organ, but it's also part of an organ system, and that's also part of me. And so for the concept of quote unquote me, I had this physical body and this like this layer. And he's like, all right, well, probably the same thing's going to happen in digital space. And he actually quotes an idea that Balaji had a long time ago. And again, Balaji's often right on things like a decade ahead of time. I think this was about a decade ago, where it's like the new digital life forms are basically going to be whatever, like the boundaries, whatever has access to a Bitcoin private key. Mm-hmm. And I would argue now maybe a Nostr private key. And oh, by the way, that is the same thing.
Right.
And so the idea is that all these this giant society of hopefully edge AIs are going to be quote unquote metabolizing. And metabolizing like is basically just energy input, energy output, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to be trying to maximize their metabolization. And if you think about it, and this is, as you may know, part of the reason what got me into Bitcoin in the first place is, I come from the energy industry. I see Bitcoin as energy-backed money. Forget all the crypto crap. Bitcoin is kilowatt-hour coin, right? This is something that Tesla, Buckminster Fuller, all these people talk about. And so if that's the case, then it's just a representation of energy, but it's a digital representation of energy. And so these new digital life forms are probably going to use the exact same kind of metabolism that we have in the quote-unquote physical realm, but they're going to use, instead of the actual ATP or joules or calories that we're processing, they're just going to do it with the digital representation of that, which is Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. There's a lot in there. It's fucking awesome. The big takeaway, though, is that I sincerely hope we get Edge AI, which is, again, coming back to like we need to get more of these people together. And Bitcoin is going to be the life force or the digital representation of life force that flows through them. And I sincerely hope we can, through him and us and more people, inspire more of the AI community to think about what could go right.
And how does that work for proof of stake?
What do you mean? Is that a joke? Oh, good one. Good one, DK. That's an exciting future. I want to hear some of his stuff, so I'll cue that up on YouTube, I guess. It's good.
And this was, I don't know why, I think somebody was sharing this one on Nostr. I forget if
you shared it. You tagged me.
Did I share this and tag you? Okay.
Yeah. That's why I pulled it up.
That's why somebody. Okay. That was the somebody.
Somebody was sharing it.
Wink, wink.
I think it was somebody pretty smart, eh?
I couldn't remember if I had shared this or not. And I was rereading it because I saw it in our links. Okay. So I get it now. It's sort of cyclical. Yeah. But this idea of Scenius, mm-hmm. right? So this idea of Scenius is, I think it shows up, it's kind of a scene, and usually in the physical world. And I think the examples are, and I haven't reread it in the last day, but I think the examples were like the Beatles kind of grew up out of a scene of musicians, mm-hmm. and there's kind of a genius to all of the people who are kind of working at the edges of a creative endeavor and trying to sort of get better. There's a little bit of like one-upsmanship and showing off, but also for the collective good of raising the standard of what's expected and what's possible, and kind of showing people kind of what's possible. And I think you see that it's kind of a network effect of sorts around creativity. And I think you see that all over the place in creative works. You see that, I think a common example is the Beatles coming out of I think it was the Berlin scene, the music scene in Berlin, or
the Beatles came out of Liverpool.
But I think they grew up. They came out of Liverpool, but I think they really grew up over a multi-year period of playing nightclubs in Germany somewhere. And it was like, it was just this like petri dish of all these people playing, and you've got like 5 gigs a night, and the afternoons and matinees and whatever. I think you see this in places like, there's some of this in Silicon Valley for sure. I think
For sure.
Y Combinator is its own kind of microcosm of Scenius, where you just
How about just the whole Bay Area?
yeah. And I think you see this. You see this in like LA with the media industry and sort of the writers' rooms and how everybody kind of mixes and remixes. But I think everybody wants to kind of like, in a sense, it's kind of a ego show off thing, but it's also like raise the floor of the group to a new standard of expectation. And I think actually Nostr it's got like a flavor of this to it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a virtual Scenius. It's a virtual place where we all gather, and you see people kind of like showing off and one-upping each other, but it's all like in kind of good fun for like raising the floor of what's possible and kind of showing, kind of raising the ceiling maybe of what's possible and showing how things can be done and getting people to like steal each other's ideas, but it's in a healthy way. It's for like to increase the ability to kind of get more creative output from the group. So this is a great post. Is there anything else that I guess, Burning Man is one, the Lunar Society, in Science, Algonquin Roundtable.
I thought it was interesting that he mentions there, I think the term was originally coined by Brian Eno.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Eno has done, he's been a part of so many of these different scenes over the years. And in music, it's fascinating because you have specific genres of music. So like for me, one of my favorite genres is trip hop.
Yeah.
That all came out of Bristol, like circa 1997 to 99-ish.
Yeah.
All of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other like kind of like specific scenes, like like I'm, as you may know, I'm from Memphis. There's a whole juking scene. Like all this stuff comes from these like little kind of weird sub communities. And it's interesting because Eno is one of the few people that's been a part of a lot of, he was with Roxy Music, which is kind of this like interesting poppy kind of scene he was in. And now he's doing all this weird ambient stuff. And
right.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just thought that was cool.
Are there physical, are there in-person music scenes today?
Oh, of course.
Like where are they?
Well, I
feel like there's like some amount of music scene on YouTube today, right? Like where people are one-upping each other and collaborating in TikTok probably too. But like, are there physical places where people go and gather and sort of?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's interesting, like how much that will be important over time, physical versus being sort of virtual first. And I think both can have their benefits and it'll be somewhat symbiotic. But I think it's going to be hard to totally replace in person. I mean, one great example is like Nashville, right? Nashville, like in the same way that everyone in Silicon Valley has a, laptop and a startup idea. Yeah. In Nashville, everyone has a guitar, and like you go to the karaoke in Nashville, like everyone is a good singer. Like literally, you go to karaoke in Nashville, and like, these are all professionals.
Oh, nice.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's like one small example. And I think there are still a lot of like different subcultures. Like even hip hop is like pretty different. Like the different subcultures.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I know I'm spending less time in this world today, but like for the longest time, there's this kind of like, I don't know, kind of like heady, more conscious rap that was all coming out of Minneapolis, and that all kind of congregated around Rhymesayers label. And so everyone that was coming out of there, it just like it spawned all the same stuff. You had kind of like Slug and Atmosphere, and then you had Idea from Idea and Abilities, and you had Murs and all these guys that were all doing like one kind of genre, each trying to kind of up each other, each pushing each other, each inspiring one another. And within different scenes like West Coast rap, you had the same thing. I mean, a lot of like more conscious rap coming out of the Bay Area and like weird stuff, right? Like you had, more of the kind of experimental guys that were fusing kind of conscious rap with trip hoppy stuff. So you had Dan the Automator, the producer here, who was teaming up with Del the Funka Homo Sapien. They came up with Deltron and all their weird stuff that came out of there. And because the Bay Area's always had that kind of like hippie feel, and Oakland had more like kind of hardcore hip hop, but a lot of that married, and that had its own weird flavors. And then in LA you had that whole, I forget what it was, like the health food store where like all these other conscious rappers came, the Freestyle Fellowship, and all of them spawned a bunch of new. I mean, definitely. New Orleans has bounce music, right, and its own kind of weird hip hop flavor as well. You've got kind of the Flossin, Cash Money stuff, but then you've got Big Freedom. Yes, there's a lot of these subcultures.
So I should get you started.
Yeah.
Line them up.
Something like that.
I was looking in the article here. He talks about the Yosemite, the climber culture of like climbing in Yosemite, which is its own Scenius. Outside of music, stand-up comedy has its own, right? Actually, I think, isn't Rogan now doing a new stand-up comedy? He's trying to like galvanize a new community in Austin. Did you see any of that?
No, but it would make sense.
Because I think there's a bunch of clubs. There's tons of music in Austin, tons of comedy in Austin, and I think he's got background in that. And I think his friend and crew group, got a lot of stand-up comedy.
And this is why, given what we have in SF, I mean, SF is the AI Scenius right now, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
We need to figure out how to do the Edge AI Scenius.
Yep.
The Nostr Lightning open source people.
Yeah. Cerebral
that's
Valley.
Yeah, but only the people that want it open
Yeah,
source.
do it like a Fort Mason. Pick out our own location and kind of galvanize a new type of group.
I love it.
It has a different set of values.
And then we'll bring some New Orleans bouncers. I'm just kidding. Very different Scenius.
This hack Nostr On. So this was a hackathon at in Miami.
I think there may have been an online portion as well. But
okay, and this is G, Pablo, and John were the judges.
Mm-hmm. I didn't go or get to see it. I would have loved to, but I just thought it was interesting to see. There's like a bunch of new. I mean, I think the big takeaway for me from all this, we can look at some of the projects, but came out of the conversation that you had with Artur, which is just that, like, if you have an idea, it's almost strictly better to build it on Nostr. Because you get access, you don't have to build a backend. Like you said, you get access to all the other users from every other app.
Yeah.
You get access to all this other data. And so it's just cool to me to start seeing things that are completely not social. But like for example, Terry Yu, who I see around on Nostr sometimes, he has a conference app. It's just an open source, if you know the green one. Yeah, Comster.
Comster, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a Nostr conference app. Like nothing to do with social media or whatever.
So what is it? You can create like events and stuff or workshop like schedules.
Yeah, I think it's like for if you have open source software for you're running a Bitcoin conference or we're running an Edge AI conference or whatever, just use this as an app.
Right.
But you get to log in with your Nostr key and you get to keep your identity.
Yep. Ostrichgram, create your own keys. Browse chat rooms, a library. Yeah, awesome. So that was going, and they gave away 35 million sats. Awesome.
Cool. Or it looks like, I guess it just ended. Yeah.
April 1st to May 20th. Yeah.
So I guess that was online and then culminated.
Okay. This is back to relays. So
cool.
Fiatjaf, of course, the creator of Nostr, was saying this is the coolest relay that exists. I mentioned kind of the relay idea that Artur had shared around kind of the popular aggregation of popular nodes. This is a relay idea. I think fiatjaf has been, supportive or suggesting kind of that there's more thinking or work around how relays maybe are exposed to users or show up in UIs or how people should choose which relays to use. And kind of like there's some, I don't know if it's client work to think about how relays get visibility or what, but this is an interesting kind of new take on relays, which is there's a proof of work requirement adjusted to keep the database size constant. All previous nodes with less proof of work than the current threshold are excluded. It's POW relay.
So how does that work? Like, if you don't do enough work, you don't do enough of the hashes, and there's only a 10 megabyte limit, then whatever is below, like only the 10 megabytes worth of posts, which have the most work, get to stay. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't know the specific algorithm that's used, but I think this is called POW respector. So I don't know I think what it's doing is if you have, like, the database size is going to be whatever it is, a gig or 10 gig, I don't know what it is. But as new messages get added to that relay, other ones get dropped if the new ones have some sort of proof of work. And maybe that's zaps attached, or maybe you send it with a lightning payment so that it gets hosted.
I love that.
But you kind of it's just a different mechanic for how you manage resources, and then ultimately a relay is scarce in how much storage it can hold, right? And it's got to use bandwidth to serve. So playing with the idea of, can you make a market for which notes should be hosted on that relay? And then also imagine, what does it mean to read from that relay? It means everybody who wrote those messages cared enough to send them and cared enough that they're hosted here, that they're visible. So maybe this is something of I know we talked about zapvertising before. We had some other stuff to talk. But this has maybe some flavors of that, which is if you have to do work to have your message hosted, and people want to view the things that have had more work applied, maybe that's a little. I've been talking about advertising as a side quest. Maybe it's not integrated into clients, but when you want to go do the advertising side quest, you can go do it. And maybe this kind of relay concept somehow fits into an ad server as one application of a proof of work type relay.
Yeah, I love it. That's badass.
I don't know. It's just it inspires you to take a step back and think about Nostr in a different way. So that's why I thought it was fun to show. Sorry, did you have something else you wanted to address, or?
Not on this.
Okay.
I do have something else. I'll say that for towards the end, I guess.
Okay. Zap pools are another one that just came out, which I think this showed up in a. Actually, did we talk about the Damus payment kind of split? It's not really a split.
No, so that's actually what I wanted to talk about anyway. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say this is kind of, I think, similar. It's like more of a similar idea, but a little bit more of a complex version. And so I think the Damus one doesn't use this; it does it kind of locally. But I think the Damus one's maybe a better intro to this idea. So why don't you actually just tee up the Damus one?
Well, what I wanted to mention that flows right into that is my experience with one-tap zaps.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which flows directly into
Yeah,
that.
perfect.
Right? So for those of you who haven't played with it yet, Alby released Nostr Wallet Connect. And Nostr Wallet Connect allows you to hook up your mobile Nostr client with a Lightning wallet so that you can then set a budget or whatever, and then you can do one-tap automatic zaps. Damus went live with this, and Amethyst first, then Damus. And anyone that's using Nostr Wallet Connect could hook up, but obviously because Alby is the one that is the easiest, and they wrote the client or the standard for this, that's what I and a lot of other people have been playing with so far. So I hooked up my Damus to Alby, and I was having some issues originally. I tried to do like a week ago, and I was on the road, and I couldn't get to work, so I was like, all right, I'll just wait till I get home. So finally, and I think maybe I did get it working, I didn't realize it, but this morning I finally like consciously reconnected and got it working, and oh my God.
Oh, you're new to it.
Well, I was doing it a week ago,
Okay.
but it wasn't, for some reason it kept saying like payment, like I kept getting this like little clock icon, like they weren't going through.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know why that was. So I got the magic experience, but it never actually went through, so it was frustrating.
Right.
Today, I don't know what I was doing, but today it's working beautifully.
Yeah.
And two things to note on that. The first one is, oh my God, it is so much fun.
Yeah.
And it is so good.
Yeah.
And it's a potential addiction. And like, I could easily see like, whoops, I accidentally just went broke, just zapping, just like,
Right.
trying to just spread the sats everywhere.
Yeah.
But like when you have that experience, and I showed it to people even when it wasn't fully working, so they get an idea of like my normie friends and be like, look at this tweet, boom, 1,000 sats transferred.
Yep.
That clicks in people's mind.
Yep.
The other thing is what you're talking about, which is I think this is the most beautiful example of like a symbiotic relationship, right? So Nostr Wallet Connect, I connect Alby. Great for Alby because now I'm sending payments from them. Also great for Damus because Will made a very smart decision, which is when you hook up your one-click zaps, you have the sliding scale feature to go from 0 to 100% of extra sats that you're donating to Damus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he made the then even smarter decision, and this was a great idea, super good idea by Will, to have a star badge, which gets brighter the more you zap.
Right.
And so, of course, I'm like, yeah, I want to, gold star. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And obviously, want to support Damus regardless. But there's like some like, you don't want to be like the cheap guy,
Right.
And I think it's genius because now, you can do up to 100%. So if you tip 1,000 sats, you tip to a note, you tip Will 1,000 sats to Damus.
Yeah.
And I know it's still early, and I'm guessing the amounts are not big, but you could imagine if he gets, millions or tens of millions of users, and even a couple percentage of them are doing that, and you start getting, each of them are flowing, tens and then hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars one day through this.
Yeah.
That's real money for him. That's real revenue.
So it's like when you pay the creator, you also contribute to the platform that helped you, the client that helped you kind of reach that creator.
And then you can imagine what you were talking about here with Kieran, with Zap Pool. And when I listened to his video, I think I told you I loved his like Irish pronunciation of pool, which is very interesting. That's like the super simple of examples. I send a tip, and it goes to the note creator, and it goes to Will or to the app developer, the platform developer. Mm-hmm. But there's no reason you can't do that. I mean, there are some technical limitations. This was Gigi's Lightning Prism idea. But eventually, like, theoretically, there should be no limit to like, well, if I'm tipping 1,000 sats and I want to then tip an extra 1,000 sats, maybe 500 of that goes to Will and Damus. Mm-hmm. Another 250 goes to Artur because he's providing the search service behind the scenes.
Right.
Another 100 sats goes to whoever's providing the caching service.
Right.
And so on and so forth.
Right. So all of those, like who has which split points is sort of where the negotiated agreements work around how you split value. And this is like the first step is put it in the user's hands, right?
100%.
I would like to see the the yellow star. I feel like the yellow star is slightly fiat today because I could like dial it up to 100% and then not make any zaps.
Yeah.
So I actually would like I'd like to be a little more proof of work,
Ooh, I like that.
right? Where you only get the yellow if you've done at least, I don't know, 10,000 sats to the client, right?
Will, if you're listening, let's make it more Bitcoin.
But I also screwed up the UI initially because I slid it up to 50% because I was like, oh, I want half to go to the creator and half to go to the client. And then somebody corrected me. They're like, no, keep sliding it all the way to 100. So don't make that mistake. Go all the way to 100.
Exactly.
Yeah, client deserves it.
See, and you got to flex with your star, right?
Yeah. Then you get the yellow. But don't give me the yellow until I actually spend
start
whatever,
spending,
10,000.
And then maybe it goes orange, like Bitcoin orange.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Spend 1 million sats. Or something.
Yeah. Like tiered pricing.
And then you could also even have, like, besides the badges, you could just have like leaderboards or like whatever, just so it's dynamic. And this is a way to keep people doing it forever, where it's like, you have the star but also the rank, like on the number 8 zapper in all of Nostr this week.
Right. Yeah. I also think there's going to be similar types of ranks for for creator specific, like who's got all the heat on receiving zaps today. And Artur already does some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think like just show me, like what you mentioned, Bounce. Is it Louisiana?
Yeah.
Bounce. Show me the top 10 artists in the Bounce category that have received the most number of zaps this week or something, right?
100%.
We're gonna get there. It's gonna be some time, but we'll get there.
But it's happening like faster than I expected. Like, think about this. 3 or 4 months ago, no one was using this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean we didn't have zaps at the beginning of the year, right?
Right.
So.
And literally like mid-December of last year, like fewer than 1,000 people were using anything.
Right.
So like this stuff is happening, and it's happening fast.
Yeah, indeed.
And one thing I just want to mention, there was an issue I had with getting the stats from Nostr AI today, so we'll have to ask Artur on the Zap page. But I think Boomy from Albia shared a little, just like a little graphic. But I'm curious, based on Nostr Wallet Connect, I would like to get this data. I don't have this data yet. But based on that, and I think there's also been some zapathons where people are zapping each other, but I would be curious to see how much stuff spikes. Like what happened to payment volume or the number of payments since one tap zaps got implemented.
Right. Yeah, actually, let's pop, because that was over an hour ago when we were checking. So I'm gonna just real time doing it live here. Let's see if we go to stats. Artur might be sleeping. Let's see. Do you recall where it was? It was down here.
Down.
Just want to make sure we're on total use. Daily zaps. These are all zaps, total number of zaps. So
yeah, this is one where there was an issue. It was these two charts. This charts are just missed it.
Discontinuity here is probably
discontinuity, and on the chart above there's an issue with daily zaps.
I see.
But if you go back up, or maybe it's just that one zap was so much higher than everything else, because there was someone that zapped 10 million and made everything else. But if you go up even above total, daily zaps. So you can. I'm wondering if this big spike was when Nostr
this
Wallet
around
Connect
the
went
19th of May.
It was around that time.
Week or two ago,
Yeah.
Yeah, could be. Awesome. What else? We've got, I wanted to talk about this just because I love this idea, so I want to shine a little light here. I think I was talking about this or hoping that somebody, I think on a few different forums I was talking about, I want to have a podcast app where I can just use it to listen to any podcast and turn like a moment from the podcast into like a Nostr note that I can just push. And so Karnage made a design for this, and I think it's really nice. It's really simple. I think he was talking about either building it himself or finding somebody to build it, but it's kind of a podcast highlighter app. And he's got some screenshots here, so I just wanted to at least mention it. If there's people who are excited about this, maybe I don't know if it fits into what Pablo's doing or if it's something else or if it's what Oscar. But I think something like this has to work, and this would be my daily driver podcast listening app if I had such a thing. I'm not going to listen to podcasts on, I don't know, Damus or some of the other apps. I'm going to listen to it on a podcast app, right? So if there's a podcast app that helps me be a better creator, conversationalist on Nostr, that's the one I would use. And I think a lot of people would.
Same.
So hopefully.
And just to spell that idea out, because I know we talked about it before, but for anyone listening, and maybe this will be Oscar, maybe it'll be someone else, but the ask is the ability to easily clip a part of a podcast you like.
Yep.
Or first convert it, I guess, using Whisper or something to text, highlight what you want in the text. Somehow, basically, to take the information from audio format, get it into text, visual text, and share the point that you are highlighting as a note.
Yep. which would also have like the text of the thing. And if the creators of that podcast have Nostr identities, it could have the npubs too, so that they could chime in on the conversation too.
Speaking of which, I know I meant to check this before doing it live. It looks like Highlighter got a new UI as well. Pablo dropped something new.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I'd be curious to see.
I didn't have that up, but let's.
Yeah, we're gonna do it live again.
Go nuts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah! Wow.
It looks nice, right?
Discover and share. Oh, this is on. Why does it say I don't have? I think I do have.
Nip issue.
Is there a nip issue? Okay, here I just hit it again and it worked now. Oh, here we go. So these are the highlights. So purple text, orange highlights. Okay, so now.
Oh, sick!
Okay, yes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Perfect. Okay.
Let's fucking go,
Love
Pablo.
this.
I love this too.
Okay, so now I can. So does the highlight nip allow me to? Okay, here it is. Perfect. So I can highlight. Real time. I'm looking at this. I can highlight this. See how it's actually doing it in my highlight on the right, which is very cool. I don't have my real NSEC in this Albi, so it's kind of a little bit of an empty, undefined character. But as I'm doing this, it's actually real time showing me what the highlight is. It's like,
That's nice.
Wow, that's actually a very, very slick UI.
It's super slick.
And then I can add my thoughts. And I assume that, is this a Nostr? It's a new kind, right?
Yeah.
And is the kind composed of a regular note plus a highlight kind, or like the kind?
I think it's just its own independent kind, but I'm not sure.
Because when I write these thoughts, is it a regular?
I think that's a regular note.
That's a regular one. Okay.
Yeah. Kind one or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean this. I didn't realize he had done this.
Slick,
when did
right?
this show up?
I noticed it just a couple days ago. It's dope.
Wow. I guess
I meant to put it on the list. So yeah.
Yeah. This is great. So this is like exactly what I wanted. So now I'm gonna. I'm gonna play with this once we get off, because this is it.
This is it. Yeah. Well done, Pablo.
Well done.
Actually, go back. I want to see there's a more. Does he have a couple of these?
So there's purple text. There's LN Wallet overview.
There's Jack's Node,
Native Internet Protocol.
Zap Planner.
Periodic payments in Bitcoin. And are there any of these hosted? Are these hosted on is it NIP23 or what's the long form?
Yeah, I forget the numbers.
But there's like a long form note idea that's different than just a note, right?
Yeah.
And are these?
I think so. Yeah, I think it would be like Obla compatible.
Because the GG one is not, right? Purple text, orange highlights. The original source document is, I think, on his own website, which is different from.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Pablo, if you're listening, maybe you can tell us in the comments or something. Like, I'm not sure if he had to re-upload that as its own note kind, or I think though he had it such that you could do this natively on the web as well.
Okay, so you can give an NAdder or a URL. So
yeah,
I guess
a URL, yeah.
Paste a medium URL and it'll pull it in right here. Here's some examples, I guess.
But I don't know if that then behind the scenes copies all the text and creates a long form post note or not.
Right. Wow, I love how you just
It's so sick. It's so responsive. Dude, Pablo, fuck yeah,
yes.
dude. This is dope. This is exactly it.
Super cool. That's great. What was that a diversion? Were you about to go somewhere else with this or no?
I don't even remember, but now I'm really excited about what Pablo's building.
Yeah. Super cool. I was gonna at least mention this SimpleX. So this,
which by the way, I thought Jack's comment was I haven't played with it yet, so I'm excited to hear your take on it. But whoever came up with this definitely needs to change the name.
Right? Yeah. The name.
We don't need herpes.
Herpes references or
no
not.
way.
But I think the concept is cool, which is it's a new type of a messenger that doesn't depend on an email address or a phone number. So even Signal, which is I think our maybe preferred privacy centric messenger today, still you have a lot of metadata issues and phone number that you have to use. This it's a messenger and it's actually pretty well built. It's better than I was sharing this with some friends of mine and I said it's better than Signal was when I first used Signal.
Really?
It's already substantially made a lot of progress. I don't know how long it's been in development, but you basically give a QR code or just some identifier code to your counterparty. So I could send one to you over Signal or however we want to communicate, and then we can show up in a messaging channel together. And my understanding is there's these message queues that I think have some, I don't know if they're directly inspired or have some analogies with how relays work in the Nostr ecosystem. So it's almost like if you were to try to build a kind of a private messaging system with some of the Nostr is not designed to do private messaging, this may be like a close equivalent of some of the Nostr philosophies, but built with the intention to support private messaging. And so I've used it now. I just got on a first few of them yesterday, and like the whole messaging experience is pretty good. I think like how groups form, I joined a group and I think it didn't have everybody from the group in there initially, and then it loaded them and it wasn't clear to me who was there and who wasn't there. And I think there's some stuff still to work out, but like as far as like the messaging, the interface for messaging is really good. And the fact that there's no identities, no sign up, and you just like send each other QR codes over some channel. And I think further, some of the way it works, we can just walk through the website here. It just looks just like a messenger, like a Telegram or something. And you could easily imagine that this becomes kind of the default. You can imagine this kind of thing becomes the default for the DM tab on.
And sorry, one question on that. So right now it's its own standalone messaging app. How would this integrate with Nostr? Like, do they have like some kind of API where you could hook this up with Damus or something? Or
well, I mean, today this is a separate mobile client,
right?
And we should talk a little bit. Actually, I want to get your thoughts on the kind of Nostr as an OS and micro app idea.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Was amazing.
Because this is maybe a candidate for that kind of thing, right? Which is like, yeah, I mean, this is an iOS app. You go to the App Store and you download it. So what is the proper integration point with Damus? Like, I don't know, like probably not. I mean, probably the best version of this that I could imagine today is I tap the Damus, I tap the DM link in Damus, and if the person has this, then it launches that app. If I have that, but it's just
that's right? That's fine for stage one, but like eventually, I don't know. I haven't looked into this at all yet, but the dream experience would just be it's somehow built natively into the app.
Yeah.
So I just go and it just takes me to another tab in Damus, but maybe it's running whatever this technology is behind the scenes.
Right.
I don't even know if that's possible, but having to go to their app, and this gets to your conversation with Artur, which, by the way, I just tweeted out or Nostr out this morning that noted, yeah, whatever. That conversation was one of my favorite conversations ever, maybe the best you've ever done.
Oh, thank you.
Artur the last part of that was dropping bombs, and if you haven't listened, the gist of it is that Nostr is so much more than just a protocol. Protocol for open data. It is. Depending on, and it gets to semantics, but an app store, an open app store that could kill Google and Apple, right? That's a big idea. Or an OS, if you want to call it that, like sort of like the Linux upon which everything else can run. Fantastic conversation. But one of the big things you guys are talking about is like, is there going to be like a master, like just the interface? Is there going to be like a master app that's like a launcher and then you plug in different apps? Is it going to be lots of super apps and maybe Damus is one of the super apps and it brings in micro apps? I don't know.
But this thing that we're talking about, SimpleX, is almost like an example of
I agree.
How you might think about redefining what is an app or why are micro apps important, or should these things, fiatjaf shared something in one of our threads where he showed a thing called Keister. Have you seen that or you know of it? So like because it was kind of a follow-up, I think, to the Artur discussion. This like Damus today is a great iOS app that you download from the App Store. And now SimpleX is like raw, but promising as a private messenger app. But like the Damus experience wants to have a DM, and the SimpleX experience may be more focused on like a proper architecture and proper way to do DMs. But the idea that these are each independent apps that come from the Apple App Store is, I think, where we kind of get the thinking wrong, because it's a little bit like the old style of thinking.
Right.
And so the analogy like I was using in the discussion with Artur was, whenever you sort of have something that's so foundational as a new OS, it's like you rethink it because it's the new sandbox for everything else. And if we're thinking about this stuff as an OS, then it actually creates this new level of abstraction that we might want to think about. And instead of it being like I go to the App Store to figure out what app I want to use, instead maybe I'm just like logged into some Nostr experience with a set of keys. Like keys are really the whole thing, right? So which is where I think the Keister app is called Keister, because it's like it's just the keys.
Just store the keys.
And then it orchestrates everything else that should happen. So if you store the keys, maybe you go to like we always mess this up. Is it Nostr that has the like Nostr.me that has like the profile creator tool?
Yeah.
So maybe you like start with a Nostr.me micro app experience inside some app orchestrator like Keister or whatever. So you have like, generate your private keys in that experience and generate your profile and customize your profile. But then you go somewhere else to actually discover who to follow, which lists I want to use, or, which people do I want to follow, or show me some like global popular explore thing, right?
Do you think it's going to be more, and maybe it's brand new and we don't have the right analogy yet, but like, do you think maybe there is no dominant, but if there is a dominant interface for using Nostr, is it going to be more of a browser or more of an app orchestrator?
Well, I guess like when I've been using that term app orchestrator, it's kind of just meant to talk about like a browser of like orchestrating experiences in a way that makes sense.
But like, I guess what I'm getting at is when I use a browser, I have to kind of like, I have to find a URL. And in an app orchestrator, like I forget what Artur's is today, the
Nostr app.link.
Yeah, Nostr app.link or whatever. Like you could have in that, it could just be, and maybe this is again just semantics, but it's like, all right, these are like the recommended first 10 apps doing this order creature count, follow 10 people. And I know y'all have talked about like, okay, then you can also have value rank and social rank to say, well, these are the ones DK use, so you should use these. But I guess, yeah, just like I think about on my phone as an example, I don't use apps that much. I know a lot of people do, but like I still often use the browser to go and like, I don't have the Reddit app, but I read Reddit on my phone from reddit.com.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's fine. It's kind of a little bit overlapping with this vision of the web being, kind of progressive web apps being a good replacement for like, iOS apps or native apps. Mm-hmm. I think like, there's a bunch of reasons we're not really there, but the point is the web actually serves this like application data that gets, run on a phone and can kind of do most of the stuff you want to do with an app. And it doesn't require you to visit an app store to do that. But like this sort of Damus versus SimpleX idea is sort of a very acute example of how you don't want to switch between Damus and a separate iOS app called SimpleX in order to access the proper DM architecture. You'd want
SimpleX
like SimpleX to just be like one of the orchestrated apps and be like, hey, I want like a DM feature, and when I use the DM feature, I want to use SimpleX.
And it'd also be interesting. Then imagine in Damus, you could be like, hey, in the settings, plug out my DMs, SimpleX for whatever signal launches. Access the Nostr client.
Yeah. And obviously, like it's messy if like these are working on incompatible protocol networks and stuff. But you could also say that about like if you use a web browser and you visit, Twitter, you can't interact with people on Facebook. So hopefully we don't create walled gardens within those.
Again,
But you could say like, oh, DK's using SimpleX to try to contact you, and there could be like a place where you figure out.
I hope this solution though is more elegant and somehow it's built directly on top of Nostr in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I have no idea about SimpleX, but like it just feels to me much more elegant if Nostr can be the base layer for all of it.
Yeah.
In the sense that we definitely don't want to send people off into new networks.
Oh yeah,
if we can avoid that.
Yeah. No, I think we don't need to.
Yeah.
I think the idea, we do need like a different app architecture, like this micro app architecture thing needs to kind of just be a different thing.
Yeah.
Then like if everybody says, I'm going to start by launching an iOS app, like great. I mean, there's great iOS apps I use every day and I'm a fan of iOS apps, but I think in a sense, there's also this thing beyond a full end-to-end iOS app. Like the full end-to-end iOS app experience is also like, I'm controlling the experience, I'm controlling the data, I'm controlling the database.
Right.
That all kind of lives with our existing mobile computing model. But I think there's like this other mobile computing model that we haven't really explored and can now only first start to explore with the existence of Nostr. And you could store even like some of that, the app data to use a micro app could be downloaded from relays.
Yeah.
And it could just be that like, hey, I use some Keister app or Keister Prime or Keister 2. And all it does is it has my keys and then it knows how to assemble the OS.
Interesting.
Like it's almost like the way you do like OS backup into iCloud with iOS.
Yeah.
You could actually have all of your micro apps orchestrated and stored on relays or personal servers. And then when you log in with your keys, that's your whole mobile experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And totally. Like when you want to use DMs, like Keister or the SimpleX thing comes up or something like it.
And I'm just thinking, we've talked about this before. You could also have the form factor of like the AI assistant, right? Where you've got the assistant you're interacting with and it's orchestrating all the micro apps for you.
Yeah.
And you're just like, and I know we've talked about like probably visual is going to be big for a long time, but I can just see that world where it's like, hey, plan me a vacation. How it's all done over Nostr with my various assistants.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. It's cool. It's very cool. Yeah, no, and by the way, one of my big takeaways of the conversation with Artur is like his thing, and again, that guy always completely undersells, understates everything he's done. Hasn't he already built this?
Built which?
I mean, it's not like pretty yet, but like, hasn't he already built the Nostr app connector?
Link.
Yeah, I mean, like that is an app store.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's already built an app store,
He's-
and then he
he's-
needs trust rank to rank the apps.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I think he's understated, and I think but he also has like a lot more that he wants to accomplish. So he's like, I think he doesn't want to talk too loudly about it and make big bold claims that are underserved. He wants to actually like
ship
deliver
the full product. But
here's
like,
the receipts, you know.
the bones are there for the app store.
Yeah, I think he knows that, and he's going there, you know, to some extent at least.
It's exciting.
And and you can squint and see it. So
I see it.
it's cool.
I'm not even squinting.
It's cool. Yeah. What else is on your mind? You got anything else?
No, man.
Top mind for you?
I think we covered a lot. I mean, I think just to your point, everything is accelerating. It's all mashing up fast. I think that the thing that Lalu and Goody did, combining Lightning payments and API gateways with LangChain agents, I think that's going to be like a seminal.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going to go back and look at that and be like, oh, that's when we started. You know, I've always kind of had this thesis that two of the big things, or at least maybe I've updated this a bit recently, but two of the big things that are going to completely make Lightning explode and Bitcoin explode are Nostr and AI. And now I think those two things together, but I think we're going to look back at this and be like, okay, that was the first time an agent got its own Lightning wallet.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
In 10 years or 50 years, every AI is going to.
Yeah.
But that was the moment.
Yep.
So it's pretty.
That's great. I'm a believer.
What about you, man? Any last minute thoughts?
Last minute thoughts. I'm thinking about if anybody's got recommendations for Tokyo. We're gonna be in Tokyo just for a. I know I was looking at your shirt is what was making me think about it. Nostr Asia. That's November 1st to 3rd. Dates are locked down.
So excited.
I'm going for a preview on Monday. So if you've got recommendations on a spot to drop for sushi or.
Yeah, I mean, anyone in the comments, I would say I can look up the name of this for you, but do you know this producer, New Job Ace?
I don't.
He is kind of like the Jay Dilla of Japan. It's a very, very good hip hop producer. And his brother runs a ramen shop where they play like his music and people from his label, and it's really fucking cool.
Nice.
So that's
Send me.
Yeah.
Send me. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Until next time.
Hasta pronto.
See ya.